Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really serious, a dangerous flashpoint in the Middle East, the escalating conflict between Iran and Israel.
It's definitely front and center right now.
Absolutely. Our mission here is to sift through the information, pull out the key insights from the sources you've given us. We want to break down, the roots of this, how it blew up into open warfare, and what it all means.
For the region and, well, for everyone, really.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut to getting properly informed on something that's, frankly, reshaping global dynamics as we speak. Okay, let's unpack this then. For decades, right, the Iran-Israel thing, it's been mostly a covert war.
A shadow war, yeah.
Cyber attacks, spies, proxy battles fought through other groups, always simmering, but sort of under the surface.
Right. But what's really striking and frankly alarming is how those long simmering tensions have just erupted. It's direct now. Open confrontation.
Which brings us to the big question.
Why now? Why this shift from, a Cold War, basically, to something dangerously hot?
So after all those years of tension bubbling away, what exactly lit the fuse? What pushed it over the edge into open military attacks in 2025?
The catalyst, the real flashpoint, was that Israeli strike, very high profile, very targeted, on a suspected Iranian nuclear facility near Natanz.
Yeah, chance. Okay. That's significant.
Hugely significant. I mean, hitting a place like Natanz, which is so central to their nuclear program, it wasn't just another military operation. It was seen as a direct challenge to Iran's core strategic interests, a red line, basically.
Making some kind of major response almost inevitable, you'd say.
You most certainly. And Iran's response, well, it was a real game changer.
How so? What made it different?
Well, several things. First, it was swift. And it was direct. Missile strikes aimed at Israeli air bases, infrastructure.
Okay.
But here's what's fascinating, strategically speaking. They didn't use their usual regional allies, like Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Houthis down in Yemen, groups they normally rely on for these kinds of things.
Ah, so they bypassed the proxies.
Exactly. They went state to state. This direct action, it's a massive strategic shift. It signals Iran is willing to take the hit directly, maybe, rather than risk things escalating uncontrollably through proxies. It changes the whole calculation for everyone in the region.
So we're literally talking missile for missile, drone for drone, direct exchanges, something we really haven't seen between them on this scale.
Not like this, no.
It feels like, not just a new chapter, but maybe a whole different book.
That's a good way to put it. And this direct conflict, it didn't stay contained, did it? The ripple effects were, well, enormous across the region and, honestly, across the globe.
Yeah, understanding why this matters so much means looking at those wider impacts.
Absolutely.
And like you said, these direct clashes, they definitely didn't just stay between Tehran and Tel Aviv. The shockwaves spread fast.
Immediately.
Let's look at some of that fallout. In Lebanon, you had Hezbollah launching attacks across the border into northern Israel.
Which predictably triggered an Israeli ground response. Things escalated there quickly.
Then there's the Red Sea. Tensions just spiked. Iranian-backed militias started disrupting shipping lanes.
Vital shipping lanes. That affects global trade, energy prices, everything.
And meanwhile, the Gulf states, like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they're watching all this very nervously.
Understandably. They're boosting their own defenses, worried this whole thing could just spill over and destabilize the entire Gulf region.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the global stage.
Well, the world is definitely watching and reacting. The U.S., for instance, quickly came out reaffirming its commitment to Israel's defense. Rock solid support there.
But also urging calm.
Oh, yeah, simultaneously pushing hard for de-escalation, trying to prevent a full-blown regional war.
Hey, what about Iran's traditional allies?
Yeah.
Russia, China.
They've called for restraint, too, publicly at least.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, they're also looking for opportunities in the chaos, maybe expanding their influence, mediating, cutting deals, using the instability to their advantage.
From your perspective, what's maybe an overlooked ripple effect here? Something we should be paying closer attention to.
That's a good question. I think perhaps the subtle realignments happening, countries maybe reassessing old alliances, looking for new security guarantees. It's a fluid situation.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? As you take all that in, what really stands out to you about these widespread impacts, it's clear the regional effects just immediately ripple outwards.
They absolutely do.
But, beyond the geopolitics, the strategy, the missiles, we really need to talk about the human cost.
We absolutely do, because war isn't just about weapons and maps. It's measured in lives, shattered communities.
And the immediate consequences here are just devastating.
Profoundly so, and heartbreaking. We're seeing reports of significant casualties in both Iranian and Israeli cities.
Ordinary people, civilians, who maybe felt distant from this conflict before. Now they're right in it.
Living under constant threat.
Imagine just hearing those sirens, scrambling for shelter, families terrified.
And the strain on everything else. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Economies are taking a massive hit. Businesses closed, supply chains broken.
It's just a stark reminder, isn't it? Behind every headline, there are real people, real lives, just completely upended.
And what's really striking and quite tragic is this dichotomy you see. On one hand, you hear voices from people in both countries expressing fear, anger, yes, but also this deep longing for peace, for normalcy.
But at the same time,
At the same time, the leadership on both sides seems to be hardening its stance, doubling down on the military options.
which just raises this huge, difficult question, doesn't it?
Mm.
How do you move forward when those two things, the popular desire for peace and the leadership's actions, seem to be pulling in opposite directions?
Exactly. Where's the path forward?
So where does this leave us? What does it all mean for what happens next? And honestly, the truth is, nobody really knows for sure how this ends,
The uncertainty is huge right now.
and the potential paths forward are pretty stark.
Basically, yeah. We're looking at broadly two main trajectories. Does it somehow stay contained? A bilateral slugfest between Iran and Israel?
Or the nightmare scenario.
Or does it spiral? Does it drag in the U.S., other Arab states? Maybe even NATO gets involved somehow? That's the path to a much larger regional war.
The stakes just couldn't be higher.
For the Middle East, obviously, but really for global stability, too.
And, okay, diplomatic channels are still open,
Yeah.
right? But barely.
Barely is the right word. There's immense international pressure building for a ceasefire, for talks. But it's fragile.
And with every day that passes.
The risks just grow. The risk of a miscalculation and unintended escalation, it gets higher and higher. It just underscores how urgent and globally significant this whole situation is.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Iran-Israel conflict. We
Yeah,
really hope
sure.
this has provided some clarity, maybe a valuable shortcut to understanding what's happening in this incredibly critical global event.
Yeah, the key is to stay informed, try to stay compassionate through it all, and importantly, keep questioning the narratives you hear. Don't take anything at face value.
Absolutely. And as you think about all this unprecedented shift to direct confrontation between Iran and Israel, maybe consider this.
Mhm.
What might this tell us about the future of conflict itself? Could we see more proxy wars suddenly igniting like this?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that deep, persistent human desire for peace actually contend with leaders who seem determined to escalate during times of crisis? Something to think about.